all living microorganisms so far. But here when you take virus till now cannot be categorized under living or non-living. So when you take living organisms and non-living organisms or non-living objects, if you say, what is the basic point you can conclude whether something is a living or non-living? What is the basic point you say? Cultural expression. Yes, Kavya. Growth. Yeah. See, students, like, of course, as Veda and Ronak said, respiration is the one of the life processes involved with living organisms only. But growth, as of Kavya said, growth is the most specific character of any living organism. We won't find growth in non-living things, isn't it? This you would have learned during your primary sessions. Your classroom blackboard won't grow, that's why it's a non-living. And your pen won't grow, that's why it's a non-living. Your bench won't grow, that's why it's non-living. And at the same time, your teachers at primarily used to show you the lizards or the frogs or flies around you. It's saying that they'll grow, that's why they are living, isn't it? So growth is the first foremost character that separates the living and non-living things. So here, when you take virus will not grow. So definitely it is a non-living thing. But how you can say that virus is a living one? So there is a dilemma that whether virus is a living or non-living. The non-living character, if you say the virus will not grow, the virus cannot reproduce. The virus will not reproduce by itself. Okay. So all these are non-living characters. Even in that case, even it will not respire or it will not excrete. Something like all the life processes, or it cannot digest. All these life processes won't be shown by virus. So that categorizes virus as non-living organism. But viruses contains genetic material. So what is genetic material? Either it may be a DNA or RNA, isn't it? So DNA or RNA is present in virus. So that makes virus a living entity. So there have been decades and centuries in discussing whether viruses are living or non-living, but still there's no conclusion at all to categorize this particular microorganism into a living one or non-living one. Okay, so you can justify the virus as a particle. So when you take a particle, we can't say whether it is a living or non-living, isn't it? So virus, we designate in biology as virus particles. Usually in biology, we won't call virus as it is. We call them as virions. Or in some books, they write virioids. So virions, virioids, both are same, which represents virus particles. Okay. Now, when you take a virus, when you are saying it won't grow, then how it is infecting all the living organisms on this planet? See, virus can infect plant, virus can infect animal, virus can infect animals like human beings. Even virus infects bacteria also. We'll see that later. So virus infects everything. But when you are saying it won't grow, how it is infecting and growing? Isn't it? Here something related to genes, but what we call it as the virus grows only in the presence of host. Here host may be a plant, a animal cell, or a bacteria or a human body. Anything can be host for the virus, where it will grow and reproduce also. It grows and reproduces. So how this is happening? It will use the host cell machinery. Whether it is a plant or animal or bacteria, it uses that host cell machinery to get reproduced. So to get its cell division, the virus divides repeatedly only inside the host. So the living entity, when you can say about virus, when it infects a host. Outside host, it is non-living. So this is how you can justifying virus being characters showing living and non-living things. Now when you take, yes, Ron, have a doubt?
Yes, ma'am. When virus is in a host body, then we can say it is living.
When it is there inside, we can't say when it is there and could able to grow and reproduce, isn't it? That's what growth is the main characteristic, makes it living. So only infection doesn't make it living. After infection, it has to grow and reproduce. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Arya, do you have any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, fine. So this is how we can say viruses are the particles, and generally we call them as virions or virioids. Now we'll see what these virion and virioids are actually. So these are the different examples of viruses. The HIV virus. Can anyone elaborate this abbreviation? HIV? No. A human immunodeficiency virus. Right, such as the colors may vary. See, the colors here, this hepatitis virus color, Ebola virus color, something yellow and red. These colors may vary. Influenza virus in blue, maybe they have shown in a colorful representation. But the shape of the structure of the virus shown here are not a predicted one. They are the one which were observed under electron microscope and the proved structures, which I have given out here. Am I clear about that? Now, when you come to human immunodeficiency virus, it causes AIDS, isn't it? So, AIDS stands for acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. I hope everybody know this one. Okay. Now, acquired, why they used acquired? So, this point explains the whole virus thing. It is common to every virus. So, I have taken this example because it better explains all types of viruses. When you take HIV virus, see, this is a HIV virus. Now, it is a non-living entity. It will be having only genetic material, either DNA or RNA. We are having only two types of genetic materials, either deoxyribonucleic acid or ribonucleic acid. And along with that, it will be having a covering called capsid. The same capsid which I explained you in bacteria structure. So capsid is nothing but a protein coat. Okay, so here you are having what? A protein material and a genetic material. That's all this HIV virus actually used to be. But what happens when HIV finds host? Here we are taking humans as host. Okay, when HIV infects this host, inside the host, the HIV will use the human body's cell structures, all the cell machinery it will use, and it starts dividing. So the division of the virus exists inside the human cell and it becomes living and it affects the immune system of the humans. So the immunity deficiency will be acquired by cause of this virus infection. That's why the virus name is human immunodeficiency. It makes the immune system of the host deficient to work. So the person who is affected with AIDS, first he'll reduce his immune capacity and later on it affects all the remaining life process and organ systems. The same thing happens with all kinds of viruses. Even if you take influenza virus, the virus when it infects human or in some animals, the influenza when it infects, it takes up the cell machinery and starts dividing. How it takes up the cell machinery? That's the point of interest here. Suppose assume that this is a DNA structure inside a virus. So as I explained, the DNA will be having different nitrogen bases. If you remember adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine, this terminology are used while explaining the genes in nucleus topic. So this structure, if you take, assume that you are having some nucleic acids on this virus DNA. When this DNA infects human, inside human you will be having genome, isn't it? Every cell will have set of chromosomes. Within chromosomes you will be having genome in the form of DNA, isn't it? So the DNA of the host is used by the virus and the DNA gets divided and gives rise to new DNA molecules. And the division continues and it becomes living entity inside the host. This is how we call it as replication. Understand the word replication. Replica means what? Xerox, isn't it? If you have a paper, when you put it under Xerox machine, what do you get? You'll get similar kind of paper, isn't it? Here the Xerox machine is nothing but your host or human. So once the virus gets into human, one paper, it uses the Xerox machine and it copies the same kind of paper, number of papers, isn't it? That's what the Xerox machine will do. So here the host genome is the Xerox machine for the virus. So the virus DNA will use the host DNA and gets replicated, gets divided, and thus it grows on and reproduces millions and lakhs of cells inside the host. This is how we call as virus infection, viral infection. Any doubts? Yes, of course, Akshat. One strand of DNA, one strand of RNA, even if it infects, it will grow and it will reproduce and spreads. Okay? Yes, Ronak, do you have any doubt?
Yes. Ma'am, HIV is a virus, so what is AIDS?
It's acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Acquired, the immunodeficiency will be acquired by the humans when the HIV infects. S stands for syndrome. It's a group of characters we call as symptoms syndrome. Okay?
Ma'am, no ma'am, I was not asking the full form, but HIV is a virus, so what is AIDS? Is it a virus?
AIDS is a disease caused by HIV. So that's the linking here. Got it, Ronak?
Yes.
HIV virus causes AIDS. AIDS is a disease, isn't it? AIDS is a disease. Because of the HIV infection, the humans will get AIDS. Not only humans, most of the mammals. Virus structure or the virion structure, as I've said, it will be having a genetic material in the form of DNA or RNA along with the protein code. In some viruses, you won't find even a protein code. As Akshat asked, even a single strand of DNA. Just like that, Ebola virus doesn't have any protein code around it. So this is just a DNA strand or RNA strand that infects the host. Okay. So when you take the protein code will have different structures. Like it may be icosahedral like this or like this. The outer structure may change like this. The adenovirus is icosahedral one. Okay. And some protein codes will show structures like this, like hepatitis B. It almost looks like the coronavirus. Now the coronavirus also look like this only with the spikes and all. So these are the envelopes, the protein codes which will absorb around the virus structure. So that gives kind of protection when they get into the host, because host cell produces various kinds of and shows different immunity systems to protect them from the viruses. So the viruses also are showing some kind of protein codes around them to protect themselves from the host. It's a kind of protecting each other from one another. Okay. Now we are having a bacteriophage word. This I'll explain. Phase, wherever you find phase, that represents virus. So the virus which infects bacteria are called bacteriophages. When you take bacteriophage structure, it's something different from other virus structure. See, you are having a head-like structure. Then you are having a tail-like structure with some anchoring structures. So this head in which you will have the DNA or RNA, the genetic material, and this part is nothing but the protein one, and these parts which are anchoring like legs, so they help in anchoring the virus onto the host and helps in penetration inside the host. So they release kind of enzymes which will rupture the cell membrane of the host and helps in infection of the virus into bacteria. Because bacteria, if you remember, the bacteria structure, if you remember, we discussed in an elaborate way, you'll be having inner membrane, outer membrane, around that you'll be having capsule. See, it is tough and rigid cell wall it will have. I explained with the peptidoglycan example. Did you remember all this terminology? Peptidoglycans are the chemical substance you will find in the cell wall of bacteria only. They are very strong and makes rigidity to the bacteria. And outside you are having capsule-like structure also. So these many layers are there to protect the bacteria from infection. Because bacteria itself goes and infects other hosts. But think of virus going and infecting bacteria, which is having this much complicated structural aspects. So in order to rupture all these kinds of layers, the bacteriophages possess anchoring parts. And these anchoring parts releases some enzymes which will lyse the layers of the bacteria and infects the bacteria. So this is about bacteriophages.